If your restaurant has systems but still requires you to be there every single day, the problem probably has nothing to do with the execution of the systems, but has everything to do with the design of those systems. See, most restaurant management systems aren't meant to remove the owner, it's just meant to make the owner more efficient. But if your business still requires you to be there every day, by definition, it is inefficient because you cannot grow and scale the way I'm guessing you want to. So, if you want to understand how to create real leverage and build a restaurant system that runs on autopilot, that's what this video is all about. If you don't know me, my name is Chip Close. I'm the founder and CEO of Restaurant Strategy. I help independent restaurant owners increase the profitability of their restaurants. I help restaurants grow. I want to talk about how to build a restaurant management system that actually works for you, that allows you to go from 1 to 2 to 5 to 10 to 50 to 500 locations. First, though, tell me if this sounds familiar, right? You know you need systems. Everybody talks about systems. You go to trade shows, you watch videos, right? They say you got to create systems. The key is systems, SOPs. Systems in your world, again, tell me if this resonates, largely have to do with you writing down everything you do, right? What you do and the way you like it done, and you try to tell people that they need to go to the binder and do all the things that you know how to do, right? And what happens then is that you go from doing all the stuff to then babysitting, making sure that everybody else does all the stuff. So what you've done is you've gone from doing all the stuff to then having to oversee all the stuff. And so while we can make more efficient use of your time, it's still busy work. You are now babysitting instead of operating. And that you've traded one thing for other, out of the frying pan into the fire. A real restaurant management system, what does that look like? A real restaurant management system creates a restaurant that runs on autopilot, that literally runs itself. I want you to think of the very biggest organizations, the very big restaurant groups in the world. The owner or the CEO of Applebee's doesn't need to go into every single one. There are systems in place, right, that allow those things to run. Even think of a smaller company like Thomas Keller's company or Michael Mina or Danny Meyer's Union Square Hospitality. Danny doesn't need to go into every restaurant. I would bet he only goes into a fraction of his restaurants every single week, and yet the restaurants run successfully and profitably. So we luckily have models to look at. We can look at the way other people have done it. The problem becomes is that it seems like a black box to most people, right? And tell me if this sounds familiar. It feels like it all happens behind closed doors and you don't know what they do, or you think, well, what they've done for big organizations is totally different. I'm not at that point. And that's entirely wrong. It's the first shift I want you to make. I want you to think of yourself, even with 1 or 2 locations, I want you to think of yourself as the CEO of a restaurant group, somebody managing dozens of locations, because the way you manage 2 is the exact same way you manage 12. It will become very clear what I mean by the end of this video. What you have to do is explain what needs to happen, how it needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and I think you need your people to understand why it's important that it happens in the way you've described. Now, you need to make every task assignable, meaning somebody has to be responsible. And ultimately, you are providing oversight and support. That's the next point I want you to understand, that your role will largely be about oversight and support once you offload everything that you do to the people, right? We are delegating and outsourcing everything. Here's the first trick. Here's the first way to do it. I recommend you take out 2 pieces of paper. On the one piece of paper, you're going to write down the things that truly only you can do, or the things you love to do, the things that get you out of bed in the morning, right? That goes on the first page. I'm telling you, it's going to be a pretty short list. On the other piece of paper, I want you to write down all of the things you currently do that, given the right personnel, given the right training, though other people could do it. Those items, those tasks could be delegated or outsourced. They could be offloaded. So again, now you've got 2 pieces of paper. On the one, it's got everything you really need to do, meaning owner meetings with the marketing agency. Yep, you're the owner. You got to have the owner meeting with the marketing agency. So things like that, or things you love to do. Man, I really love to be at the front door on a Saturday night. Fine. If that's where you want to be, then I want you to be there. What we're doing is we're freeing you up so that you're not pulled back to service bar. You're not pulled back onto the line or back to expo. I want you to understand what are the things that really only you can do, what are the things you love to do, and on the second page, it's all the tasks you currently do that could be offloaded. Now, the key is in the personnel, first and foremost. You got to have the right people. Jim Collins wrote about this in his book, Good to Great. You got to get the right people on the bus in the right seats. So if you got the right people, congratulations, you're halfway there. Now you got to make sure they're in the right seats. They are doing the jobs that they are great at. If you got great people, but there's nowhere to really fit them, hang on to them and find a way to fit them in, because good people are hard to find. So the very first thing you need to do is you need to get people in place that you can trust, right? And you need to be very clear with them on the expectations, right? What you need them to do, how you're going to check up on them, how you're going to provide support, and what are the consequences if they don't do what you need them to do. Danny Meyer wrote about this in his book, Setting the Table. He called it constant, gentle pressure. We are consistent. We are unwavering in how we describe, define, and articulate what needs to be done, right? We do it gently because there's no reason to raise our voice. You're the boss. Everybody knows if they don't do what you need them to do, they'll be fired. Understand, right? Then constant, gentle pressure. Understand that there are consequences to not doing what you need them to do, right? So the first thing you need to do is create these two lists, right? You then have to get the right people in place. When you create that list, that second list of all the tasks you currently do and all the things that you could delegate, next to each item, I want you to write who could potentially take ownership of that. When you pass all this off, you explain your expectations, right? Expectations are what I need you to do, when it needs to be done, how I need you to do it, and why it's important that it's done in the way that I've described. You have to set deadlines, right? There are check-ins. And then, right, that's the oversight. And then you're providing support. What you really want to do is say, and if any of this you need help with, you need additional tools, you need guidance, you need advice, then that is what I am here for. Ultimately, at the end of the day, your job is oversight and support. Now, what systems do we offload, right? The number one important system that you need is a financial system, right? So I'm going to define the systems that you need to put into place. These need to be passed off, right, or assigned to very specific people. And then we're going to talk finally about a cadence for how you check in to make sure all of these things are being properly executed and managed. The number one is your financial system. A business exists to generate a profit. Everything else is noise. Great food, great service, cool decor. Who cares if your restaurant isn't making money? Now, I'm not an idiot. I understand that great food, great service, cool decor all helps us attract people and bring people back and make money. But we have to understand that everything we do is in service of the bottom line. That's not shallow. That's not callous. That is a reality. Because at a certain point, if your restaurant's not making money, you're going to stop running your restaurant because you're going to eventually say, man, this is a lot of work to make no money. So let's build a system that allows you to make money. The most important system, and I've talked about it, I'll continue to talk about it, is understanding forecasting and budgeting. Closing your eyes, looking to the future and saying, how much am I going to make next month? Given that, then here are my budgets for cost of goods, for labor, for all of the different areas of my business. You assign that system. That's something we do in the P3 Mastermind. So I'll say this right now. If you don't know, I run a group coaching program. The link is down below. If you want to learn more about it, you can click there and go learn all about it. If you're interested, we'll chat and we can talk about getting you in it. So if at any point you need guidance with any of this, this is something we do. We have something called the P3 scorecard. So forecasting, budgeting, managing the schedule, managing the ordering so we know we don't go over budget in our prime cost, right? COGS plus labor equals prime cost. Everything leads back to that. It's the most important system in your place. So we need a system for financial management, giving them a tool so that every day they're setting revenue targets. Every day they are tracking daily revenue. They're tracking their labor. They're tracking the orders and seeing where they are as in comparison to where they need to be. It's the first system I'd offload. Then you need a system for marketing, right? What are the activities that happen? When do you decide on promotions, events, programming, all of that? What's that cadence? Who is responsible for sending emails, for posting to social media, for running the ads, for optimizing the ads, right? Financial management, marketing management. That's the second system you need. Then food and beverage, the actual product that you serve. So who manages food, menu development, ordering pars, inventory, who actually manages that? P.S. probably the chef or the kitchen manager. So they manage that system, put a system into place. Same thing with beverage. It's probably your beverage director or your bar manager. So who decides what goes on the menu? Who orders that? Who, again, takes inventory, manages pars? So now, so far, if you're keeping track, financial management, marketing management, food and beverage management. The next thing is personnel, right? Who is actually on payroll? Who does the schedules? Who does the weekly payroll? Who hires? Who trains? All of that, we need a system for that. And how do we keep track of that? Physical plant, this is usually a general manager or director of operations, meaning do things need to be repaired? Do things need to be replaced? Do we need upgrades? Cleanliness, all of that. That's another system. What I'm hoping you're seeing as we go all the way around the horn is that we have now created little silos for every important area of our business. Your job now as the owner, you used to be in charge of all this, 15 minutes ago, and now I'm teaching you that these are all the things that get offloaded. You are going to assign each of these to somebody else, meaning financial management probably goes to your general manager. The kitchen, food probably goes to your chef. The bar, the beverage probably goes to your bar director or your bar manager, right? Personnel probably goes to a service manager, or one of your floor managers is in charge of hiring, training, payroll, all of that, scheduling. Physical plant is probably also your GM, or if there's a director of operations, or if there's a head steward, somebody in charge of that. But now we've gotten silos for all the major parts of your business, and they've all been offloaded. Once you delegate them, then you sit down with each one of those people and you create a system, set of activities, what they do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis to make sure to stay on top of that. And most importantly, you come up with a way for you to provide oversight, right? So if I'm running a 5th grade class and nobody does their homework, or I never check their homework, I'm not sure if they're doing their homework until I give the final exam at the end. So the final exam at the end of the year is going to test them on all this stuff I've been teaching all year. I give quizzes and tests throughout the year, or I check their homework to make sure they are keeping up with the workload and the concepts that I'm teaching, because one idea stacks on the next, on the next, on the next. Same thing has to do in the restaurants. You need to provide a regular cadence for keeping track. Books management should happen once a month. I always like doing it on the 15th, right in the middle of the month, meaning we look at the P&L from the previous month and we look at our forecasts and budgets and generate those for the following month, meaning in February, we look at January, we look at March. We don't talk about February at all. Why? Because our weekly manager meetings, right? We meet for 1 hour every single week. We are talking about all of the things we are doing in the period, in the month, to manage for profitability. Again, when we sit down for our manager meetings, it is going through those areas. We look at financial management, marketing, food, beverage, personnel, and probably physical plant. That gives structure to your management meetings, so it's not just you lecturing your managers the entire time or them complaining to you the entire time. This is how you build a system. Now, all of this, because I started this talking about how do you pull yourself out. What we are trying to create is a way for you to work maybe 5 hours a week in the business, meaning you have to have these weekly manager meetings. You are going to check in every single day on daily revenue, labor, and ordering to make sure we are on track and not going over budget. You are going to do the monthly marketing meeting or the bi-weekly marketing meeting. But what we've mapped out is a way for you to actually keep track of it every day, and for you to touch base every week. What happens is that now all the text messages, the phone calls, and the taps on the shoulder, right? Hey, you got a minute? Hey, can I ask you a question? Right? All of that gets saved for the meetings. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, people aren't going to know what to do. What you need to do now is make sure that everybody knows how you want it done. Again, what they need to do, when they need to do it, how it needs to be done, and why it's important that they do it that way. What we're giving them is an algorithmic way of thinking. It's a fancy way of saying, if this, then that. That's what an algorithm is. If this happens, then this is what you do about it. If the heat goes out, then you call this company. If the dishwasher goes down, then you call this company to service it. If somebody calls out, then you do this. You're giving them a series of algorithms that they can apply. If this happens, then you do that. And then you're giving them a rubric for how to think through problems, right? Is this problem like something we've dealt with in the past? And you help them identify the right way to problem solve. Eventually, you're going to build a threshold. Anything under this threshold, I trust you to take care of it on your own. Meaning, hey, if something breaks and you need to fix it, if it costs less than $1,500, just go do it. If anything goes over $1,500, then I need to be brought into the loop. I need to approve that purchase. I need to approve that spend. whatever that threshold is, 1,000, 1,500, 10,000, whatever that number is, and it will grow the further you go along and the more you trust your people. But you have to give them algorithms, right? If this happens, then you want to do this, and you have to help them understand how to make better decisions. Ultimately, then, this is the most important thing. You have to empower them, right? You have to give them the authority to actually make these decisions. Don't jump down their throat. Don't override them. But every single week, you review the decisions they made in the manager meeting. That's what you do, right? So they're presenting to you, they're asking you a bunch of questions, or they're telling you what they did, right? And then you are responding, or you're asking additional questions. And then if you need to give feedback, you give feedback then and there. What you need to do, and again, we started this whole thing talking about your personnel. Jim Collins said you got to get the right people on the bus in the right seats. That is key. Having people that you trust, having people that will learn. They will make mistakes. It's inevitable. But you say, okay, great. I understand why you made that decision last week, but in the future, make sure you're thinking about this, or what I might have done is that. And then you ask them, does that make sense, right? It makes sense why you made the decision you had, but now I'm giving you more information and I'm trying to refine your thinking. Does it make sense now what I'm saying? And they'll say, great, and they'll learn something. So they made a decision, they made a mistake, they live with it, they learn how to do it better in the future. The only way they will learn is if you let them go and give them room to fail. What happens is you are the guardrails on the highway. So if they make a mistake, they're not going to fly off the cliff. They're just going to hit the guardrail. They're going to ding up the car a little bit. That is you. You are the guardrails on this business, providing oversight and support. This is what no one ever talks about. This is what Danny Meyer has established because he has VP of restaurants and directors of operation and GMs at the unit level and corporate chefs that sit above the executive chefs. There are layers of leadership that all manage below him. In order for you to get out of the day-to-day business, you need to offload everything, delegate, make certain people responsible for certain things. So there are consequences. The buck has to stop somewhere. And then your role becomes oversight and support. This is what I need you to do. And the last thing I'll leave you with, right? Everything goes back to systems and goals. Rather than telling people what they need to do, make sure people understand what needs to happen. I need us to generate $220,000 in revenue this month. This is the plan we're going to put into place to do it. So $220,000 in revenue is the goal. The system, right? A system is just a repeatable set of actions. In order to achieve $220,000 in revenue, we are going to do this and this and this and this and this. You don't define all those thises. The general manager does. The chef does. The marketing manager does. Whoever you have on your team, you say, this is the goal. Now build me a plan to get there. Great. For you, this is the goal. Now build me a plan to get there. For you, this is the goal. Now build me a plan to get there. And then you help them tweak, edit, and you provide oversight. You provide accountability to make sure they do what they said needed to be done. Make sure they do what they told you they would do. This is what we talk about. This is what we do in the P3 Mastermind. So I run a company called Restaurant Strategy. I host a group coaching program called the P3 Mastermind. We've grown it from 10 people in one group up to 150 people spread across 4 different groups. The thing has grown like crazy because the impact we make is real. Program works. So all of the stuff I've said here will work. Put it into practice. If at any point you are struggling with it, if you need guidance, you want someone to walk alongside you to make sure you're doing this right, we can get this stuff done in as little as 3, 4, 5 months. You can have a totally different restaurant in 6 months' time. If you want help with that, use the link below and grab some time on the calendar. We'll chat about that. There's no pressure. We'll just see if you're a good fit. And again, if you haven't subscribed to these videos, make sure to do that. Go down below, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you'll get notified. Put out new videos every single week, all meant to help you level up and build a more profitable, sustainable, and scalable restaurant business. Again, my name is Chip Close. I appreciate you guys being here.